Quite the times we're living in for the first time in a very long time. Thank you for the drink, Mr. Franco. For the first time in a very long time, we had time on a Sunday, right? It was tiring, but there's nothing to do. For those of you looking for updates on a number of horses, I'll answer the questions we had. Excellent Nation didn't train yesterday simply because Harry wanted to go in 2:30 and he knew we were probably going to go in 2:20. So he wanted to wait a week. What's the rush? I said, yeah, sure, whatever. So Excellent Nation and Trafalgar trained single trips by themselves yesterday. Knockdown Dragout is now home. She is at the burn. At the burn, I'm going to go see her in a little while. Go down and take a look at her. See how she's feeling. I heard she looks like $1,000,000, which isn't that shocking considering where she came from. Aki and Sarah Svanstedt do a fantastic job, but I think, at the end of the day, the filly is still a little bully and a little ornery and hard to deal with, and Aki Svanstedt probably said what I would say. Why am I doing this? Why am I working for Anthony McDonald and a bunch of people I don't know when I have a barn full of horses I own pieces of or hopefully world champions? So I think he just cut her loose and said, nah, she's not for me. Now, we had some clients that are like, oh, well, if Aki said she's no good, just get rid of her. It's not that Aki said she's no good. It's that Aki was a little fed up, and I don't blame him. So when we look at Johan and Sebastian Yu, these are horses that are every bit as ornery and frustrating as Knockdown Dragout ever could be. The only difference is we pay way more attention to Knockdown Dragout because she was suspected as our best horse last year and has the potential to be our best horse any year, this year included, if she wants to put her head on straight. That takes time. And she's a baby. Everybody says, well, she's 3. She's still a baby, and she's still maturing. You can see that maturity in many of her horses. White Tiger wore a snake cord right up until 5 weeks ago. His whole life wore a snake cord. So lots of horses are a little hard to deal with, but I'm going to chalk Knockdown Dragout's issues solely up to maturity and nothing more. We'll work with her. We'll get her squared away and see what kind of horse we have. I mean, ultimately, we want to win the Breeders' Crown or the Hambo Oaks or anything with her. Let's focus on a maiden. Let's focus on getting her back to the races and just win a maiden. How would that be? Would that be okay with you? So I think that's what we're going to focus on. I think a lot of our internal issues with Knockdown Dragout is expectations and perceptions. And a lot of the external issues, so for instance with Aki, was she's just too ornery, too rammy for us, and ultimately it boiled down to Aki Svanstedt doesn't need Knockdown Dragout. So that's where we're at right now. Obviously we're all dealing, everybody in the world, for the first time in my lifetime, the entire world is dealing with one problem, and it's so surreal. I wake up every day and you catch yourself. I don't know if you do, but I catch myself every so often just, this is going to be a bad dream. Like, this can't be real. But it is. And we have a number of clients asking right now if we're going to be off for an extended period of time, why don't we turn the 3-year-olds out? We can do that. You don't want to interrupt training for horses unless you have to. Now, if we're going to be off for an extended period of time, if we're talking another 8 weeks, even 6 weeks, if it is May 15th, then yeah. Horses like Sebastian Yu can get a couple of weeks in the field. Horses like horses that were racing, right? Like even Brushcut. His feet bother him a little bit. He did have a high ST. He trained by himself yesterday also, by the way. He'll probably train with us next week if we train again. Bottle of Bread. Horses like that could do with a couple of weeks off, fine. But horses that are just qualifying, I would rather keep them tighter, and then we'll look to maybe give them a week or 2 off, depending on how long this is going to last. And that's the frustrating part. A lady and a reporter from a newspaper somewhere in Ontario had called me, had got my number, and asked me some questions. And she said, horse racing is she understood, very fragile and very vulnerable part of agriculture, but part of society. And, how are you coping? And I'm more worried about our clients and terrified what's going to happen. Is everybody okay in our midst? Because we have a rather large ship, so to speak. So I'm worried about, the horses will continue to train, but I want to make sure our clients are okay. You guys have lives too. You have jobs too. I've heard from some of our clients say, I don't have a job anymore, but we're getting by and I want to keep my shares. Where does that precipice, right? Where is that tipping point? And we have other clients that are like, listen, we want to help anybody out in need in the group. And you hear a crack in my voice sometimes when I say it, because the generosity of people towards strangers always, makes you feel great about humanity, right? But makes me feel proud of what we built here by accident, but the people we've attracted, right? Just the best people you could ever ask for. And I just want to make sure that we are able to move forward for whatever timeline they give us. And whatever timeline they give us, and they haven't given us one. And I told the reporter, horse people need two things: money, because at some point, relief packages aren't going to be enough. I'll put it to you this way: if your relief package is 50% of your potential wage, and you're just getting by on your potential wage, not going to help anybody at some point. It's not going to cut it, right? Even though I know everybody's trying and everybody's trying to do better. And it was brought to my attention by an accountant the other day, well, $2,000 a month is more than minimum wage. I get that, and I know why the government's doing that. I mean, obviously, you can all understand, eventually, whether it's from going stir crazy or broke, there will be civil unrest. And we don't want that, especially we're Canadians, right? You guys might be Americans. You're used to civil unrest, but here we're not. And it's, I joke about that, but it's not funny. And there is a line there for everyone, right? So just so much stuff going on. It annoys me now. I'm a guy that obviously is on social media a lot, right? So I just scroll by people that are haters, right, or angry people for whatever reason. And I understand, like, I'm looking, as I'm talking, there's a young man over here rollerblading on the sidewalk. There's another gentleman out for a walk. There's another lady walking her dog. There's a couple over there walking. I mean, nobody's around each other, but you can't stay in the house. And, people, and I assume it's people in the urban areas are like belittling people and angry because they're out of the house. And all of a sudden, somehow Facebook is full of doctors and epidemiologists, people that know everything about everything. And it's very frustrating to watch other people getting attacked on Facebook. And, I know everybody wants this over right now. It's not going to be. I said to somebody the other day, we all want to get back to racing. And somebody said, well, it's going to be dangerous and people could die. Yep, you're right. When this curve, as they say, I assume it goes up, and then as it starts to flatten, if you continue to social distance and be vigilant, we assume you'll get back to some sort of normal life. Think about this. Who's going to a Toronto Blue Jays game before they're ever vaccinated for COVID-19? And God help us if it ever mutates in the fall. Who's going to a Blue Jays game, a Toronto Maple Leafs game, Detroit Tigers, Milwaukee Brewers? It doesn't matter. Who's going to get jammed in any arena with 40,000 people they don't know? It's going to take some time to get over this. The good news for horse racing is, and the sad thing is, we're kind of used to our grandstands being bare, and if we're one of the only games in town, we'll probably wager more. Getting back to some form of normality won't be that hard for this industry. And it will be dangerous, I guess. I always have to be guarded what I'm saying, right? But listen, people, I'll put it to you how I put it to my brother the other day. We were just talking on the phone, and I said, eventually the curve will flatten until we have a vaccine for this, and we're confident that we have at least some sort of defense, I guess, against this. In reality, we've been telling everybody that obesity kills for generations. I just ate a bacon sandwich. So did you, probably. We all eat hamburgers. People die of heart attacks, strokes all the time. The survivability rate of this is, somebody said it's now just under 98% in the States now. So that number's going up, and obviously it will go up with the predictions from the CDC, and that's terrifying. But we know who in society is most vulnerable right now. Our elderly, my father, my mother, your fathers, your mothers, people with weakened immune systems, and I don't know the way forward, but I know that the economy can't sit still forever, right? Regardless of what you think and how, if we stay indoors till September, there is a 0% chance that this world can sit still for months on end. It just won't happen. It's impossible. So I hope that the curve starts to flatten. And I think that you look like a place in Ohio, right? They took, and I told everybody, I'm sick and tired of reading and hearing about politics online right now, and I'm sick and tired of hearing about medicine online. If I want to get my updates, I'll listen to the news and decide if it's normal or not, and then go to, somebody said John Hopkins' website's pretty accurate. And then obviously Ontario Health. I live in Ontario. I don't need to go on CNN and know what's happening in New York and what they're doing in New York, because I don't live in New York. And I know we don't want it to come here, but I'm going to listen to Ontario Health because that's where I live, Ontario. So eventually the curve will flatten and we'll get back to racing, because we can. I believe I talked quickly to Virgil Morgan. He is a horse for us, Stonebridge Simba. And I talked to Virgil Morgan quickly on the phone the other day, or via text, and said, what's your take? He said, well, the governor has locked everything down until May 1st. Obviously, we're going to shoot for the first week of May to get back racing. They put some well thought out proposals, and I'm certain behind the scenes, Ontario has as well. He said, if we start racing at 3 o'clock and race 5 races at 3 and 5 races at 6 or even 7, and clean everything out in between, everybody practices social distancing, I can't see why we can't get back to racing. And I'm not a doctor, and I don't want to hear your emails about, I don't want anybody emailing me to tell me why it's dangerous. I'm well aware of why it's dangerous, but I'm also well aware of what's going to happen to this industry if we don't get back to racing at some point in the near future. And as going back to my original statement, the reporter had asked me what they need. We need money. We need a soft date when we came back racing. I would rather have Jim Lawson say that we're aiming for May 15th, and then on May 1st say, the curve isn't flattened enough, and whatever, Doug Ford or Ontario Health has said that it wouldn't be in our best interest. We're now going to push that date back another 15 days. At least we feel that we're working on a 15-day window at that point, and I would rather see that, right, than not. And anyway, that's the world we live in. You guys know it. You experience it every day. Keep sending me your emails. I love talking to people and hearing about what they do all day, right? And if I didn't respond back to you, just because I probably got 10 or 15 things, and me being me, I'm working on a number of things that the world is changing. So I want to be on the front line of changing with it. So I am working on a number of things. A couple of the projects that were very, very important to the stable and myself are now tabled. They're shelved. But I'm never going to stop moving. So I'm trying to work on what the industry is going to look like when it starts back up, and if there is opportunities for the stable in doing so. And I don't mean that in an opportunistic way. I'm not buying toilet paper to sell it for $9 a roll. I'm looking at what the industry might look like, and then trying to tailor the stable.ca and what we're doing in the future to fit that. You always have to be aware of what's going on ahead of you. Sure, I said to somebody today on Facebook, there's no point complaining about where this came from, what happened, and how many people are going to die. Your house is on fire. Put it out and then worry about everything else. So we're in a stage right now where we're trying to put out this fire, but I'm starting to build the blueprints of what our house is going to look like afterwards also. So a lot going on. Obviously, I'm not just laying in bed sleeping, getting bed sores. I'm writing down a lot of stuff that I want to look at, a lot of stuff that might benefit you and I and the stable and horse racing moving forward. And that's the stuff I'm working on. There's no point talking about it. It's in its infancy right now, but who knows? So as I said, I bring a lot of videos to you guys all week. I hope I'm not annoying you in doing so. It keeps me relatively sane, and at the same time, I can't imagine you guys got a lot to do sitting at home also. Everybody I know is a hard worker and now has been told to virtually shelter in place. So what else are you going to do, right? There's only so many times you can watch movies on Netflix. And I would rather talk to my clients and converse with them than watch a movie for the 5th time. What do we got? So just circling back quickly, a little prediction. I believe for Paul Van Camp, I'm probably going to lose that bottle of Tito's. I believe I had bet him that. I forget the date that I'd given him. I think it was 3rd week in April or the 1st of May. It doesn't look like it's going to be either. Now, if we did bet for May 15th, I think I'm still in, but I don't think we did. I want to believe that we're going to aim for May 15th. And is that unrealistic? Maybe. There's no point emailing me and telling me why it's impossible. Anything's impossible or possible right now. Nobody knows. I'm looking at the economy saying there's no way that this economy in Canada and the United States and the world is going to sit still forever. Somebody's going to have to do something. And, you hear every day about these cures that they're coming up with, but take them with a grain of salt. If they had a cure, it would be all that was on the news right now, right? And we all know, we've heard, I saw the clips from Dr. Fauci saying, a vaccine is a year away. A year away. I don't know how you fast track that. I'm sure there'd be no shortage of people willing to be guinea pigs for it, but nevertheless, the world moves at a certain pace for a certain reason, none of which I know when it comes to medicine, but it is what it is. Now, what I was saying was, I think my prediction will be we're going to aim for May 15th. I think that that's a very soft date and one that may have to be flexible, but I think the first jurisdiction you're going to see back is Ohio. They were a little strict with their quarantines right off the bat. I think their governor did a good job putting that together. And I think the Horsemen have put together a rather structured plan for combating COVID-19 and the spread of it in racing, during racing. We talked about those 2 post times, and I think, I know Virgil had outlined just quickly, briefly, what they were looking at. I think they're on the right track, and again, they're on the right track. The hell do I know? But I think as far as protocols go, for those of you out there, Ontario didn't close because we had some outbreak in the paddock or it was deemed unsafe to race. It's my understanding we stopped racing because the test barn staff and the ambulances were threatening not to show up, which, can you blame them? How do we combat that? When we as horsemen say, enough's enough, if you don't want to race, don't race. We're certainly not going to belittle you, but I can assure you the first day they're racing, I'm racing. If it's deemed safe and the protocols are safe, and as an industry we agree that that's a date we're going back, then I'll be there, and I would suspect most everybody will also be there in a safe manner, 6 feet apart, with masks on if we have to. But I don't know when that'll be. I believe Ohio will be the first state to open up. They're taking it very seriously from a horseman's standpoint. Ohio understands the working mechanics of their state also, and horse racing and agriculture play a big role. So I think if your industry is deemed an essential service, we're still jogging, we're still training, we're still all around one another right now. We have our own little carny atmosphere, so to speak. There's no reason why, in my mind, again, I'm not a doctor or an epidemiologist, so don't belittle me for this, but I would suspect we'll be, put it this way, we'll be the first, what I consider a major sport anyway, maybe we're not, but we'll be the first sport up and running. And I suspect Ohio will lead the charge. They will take the brunt of the social sword, so to speak, as people belittle us for wanting to race, as I'm sure some people will on this video. I do, and everybody else does. I think Ohio will be the first to shoulder the brunt of those concerns and those questions and that anger. and I think that Pennsylvania and Ohio will follow suit, maybe Illinois, I'm not sure. But I believe Ohio will be the first out of the gate, and I'm hoping it will be somewhere around the first part of May, the first half of May would be, again, maybe that's being a little aggressive, but I can hope, I can dream. It's free to dream. This is my office / car. I can dream in here all I want. So that's where we're at. Obviously, New York's in a different situation. They're under attack, something fierce. And when will New York open? Oh my God, I don't know. And I know we have a lot of clients, good people in New York that are really scared for racing, and I'm scared for them. I mean, this is a terrible thing. It's something that, although it was predicted, nobody really thought it would happen in this manner. I think that's pretty obvious. Could you possibly think this? So we can only hope. Where are we at now? We had our 3-year-olds train yesterday. 3-year-olds trained yesterday. I was happy with them. For those of you out there that are saying, well, you know, they didn't really sprint hard, or they weren't in a race formation like the 2-year-olds, is because we're not. You know, these horses have all raced for the most part. We just want to keep them tight, right? Without stretching them out, without compromising them in any way. We don't usually go fast miles at the farm. Obviously, the miles we went yesterday, I told Curtis he could post them. I think the fastest mile was Johan, 2:12, I think, 2:11, 2:12. All the other horses were 2:15, or the one set went in 2:20. That was the set with Houdini. The second set went right on 2:20. Everybody else went a variation of 2:15, or as fast as Johan, 2:11, 2:12. I went in 2:11. I started back a little bit. I'd say the horse up front, Versatile, would have been like, it would have went in 2:12. I went in 2:11 because I was back a bit. So they were good. The 3-year-olds were good. Excellent Nation didn't train. Obviously, Harry just wanted to go a slower mile first. No particular reason why he couldn't. So I said, go ahead. And Trafalgar, let me build on what I'd said the other day a little bit. Trafalgar, she doesn't carry as much weight as I'd like to see. I wouldn't call her skinny. She's certainly not large and fat. And she really takes her training seriously. When she comes in, she's really sweated up. She enjoys it, but I don't want her losing any weight. I would love to see her put on weight and train in this time off. So horses like her, she already knows what she's doing. There's no rush. I might just train her in a set by herself next week also. If Harry thinks she come out of this week good, she's comfortable all week, that might be what we do. Obviously, more now than ever, we're going to look at every horse on a case-by-case basis and try and tailor their training and their upkeep to fit them. And then we did have one tiny little hiccup. Cabernet, she came up a little bit lame right hind last week. She was sick, and we went to train her after that. She was a little pinchy right hind. There wasn't any swelling or any heat, but she was clearly uncomfortable on it. We x-rayed her, and the vet said there's some roughness on her pastern, which isn't that shocking. She always kind of wore a gait and strap and got over on that a little bit. Not that shocking, but what was shocking was she thought she saw a shadow there. She said, listen, given everything going on right now, why don't we just rest her? Because if that shadow turns into a line or a crack, it's not good. You know, why don't you just rest her? So I think we're just going to sit her for 6 weeks. Cabernet, I had my fingers crossed, and I wasn't talking much about her, but I saw her on the track. She got much bigger, slicker gait. She looked like she put weight on and filled out. She looked like what we wanted her to look like, and I was really excited about seeing her train back. And now this, but nevertheless, I mean, the one thing about giving her time to heal that one area is that if there's any other aches and pains, they'll also heal up also. So on the other side of this and on the other side of that, you should see a better Cabernet. Our 2-year-olds trained this week. I'm going to give you a top 10 list for them. I'm going to highlight, I guess just quickly, what are we at, 23 minutes? I'm going to highlight quickly some of the horses that impressed me yesterday. I did this in a video already yesterday, but in case you missed her, you didn't, we'll talk about a few things. Nancy Allison, we had shot her after she trained. 2 big corns. Corns are just how they sound in their feet, and they hurt. You got to cut them out and then burn them out. Found 2 of those in her right front foot, which made sense because as I trained her, she was on the right line a little more than usual. And I'd said to James pulling up, I said, maybe I should have put a head pull on this filly on this training track. Now I know why she was on that right line. Those 2 corns are gone. Aside from that, she needs to go 2 trips, not 1. So the next time we drone Nancy Allison, we'll probably go a mile in 35, sit with a blanket on and wait for the other horses to go out. And then we'll go a mile in 2:15, 2:12 with her. Other than that, I thought she was fine. If you watched after the set when we were trotting hard on the end of it, Harry and I, we tried the last half in 104, and Nancy Allison was flawless. I was very happy with her. It's unfortunate she made a break, but unusual. Harness AM making a break is very rare. Rudy Blue Chip was as good as I've ever seen him. Now, he only went a mile in 2:20, but that's where his comfort level is on that track, and he was really, really good. Enduring Strength had made a break. No big deal there. He's an Angus Hall. You can see him getting bottled up in the 2-hole. Then he gets his head twisted around. When he gets his head twisted around, he boxes his gate up, and he makes a break. It's not that shocking. I saw him train by himself on Wednesday. It was great. This is a good time to work on that stuff with this horse, right? I don't care if he runs 3 weeks in a row. You have to keep putting him in that position to do it right. He'll learn to do it right by doing it wrong. And that's might sound backwards, but that's how it will probably be. And that's how it usually is for a lot of Angus Halls. So Enduring Strength, no concern with him making a break. He's sound, looks fine. Globetrotting looked good. Spend That Money really had some kick on the end of it. Sunshine's Finest was just out for a stroll in the park. What about Hometown Boys? Hometown Boys is really starting to look like a horse. Not a donkey, not a sour horse, a horse that's got some pop to him, and he looks like one of the best horses on the grounds. Just by the way he looks. Big, strong colt. And the one thing I noticed was, finishing up his mile after we went by everybody on the inside, his ears went forward. Might have turned the corner on Hometown Boys. I mean, I think we can all agree he has the ability, he has the tools, he has the breeding to be any kind of horse. His full brother was certainly a very nice horse, who, by the way, is back in training right now, jogging first. So Hometown Boys, who knows? Canadian Titan made a break, and Mario, for those of you out there, Mario Bergeron takes his job very seriously. He was very upset with Enduring Strength and Canadian Titan making a break. I told him, just relax. We're not racing for money right now. This is when we get the kinks worked out of them, especially now. I said, Canadian Titan, just wait. All right, we made some shoeing adjustments. We made some equipment adjustments. She's hanging on the right line. Thinks she got a little bruise in her right foot. Just relax. It'll be fine. And Mario, he gets out. He wants them fixed now. But this isn't a now sport, right? Not always. They're not racing. If they had to be fixed now, we could make some extreme measures. We could take her to the vet. They can shock her knees. They can inject her knees. You can do a lot of things. We're going to take our time and do it right. We have time on our side, unfortunately, now. Fortunately and unfortunately. So, Nancy, for those of you who maybe haven't got a chance to look at Canadian Titan, she is the biggest horse on the property. She is a bus with legs. And going around that little track's probably not the most comfortable thing for her, but she's going to have to race on a half this year too. So Canadian Titan, we'll get her squared away. Just as I said to Mario, the easiest way to put it is inches and ounces. Couple of little ounces of weight on or off here, a few little inches in the shoeing here or there, we'll get her perfect. And the reason I'm certain of that is when we first made those shoeing adjustments, Friday I scooted her 3/8 of a mile, almost a half, and she was flawless, perfect. Then come out Saturday and she wasn't. That tells me soreness. We changed her shoes up front. Must be her feet are bothering her a little bit, running in a little bit, looks a little uncomfortable, right front and right hind. We can work on those things. Those are little aches and pains. These are babies, and this is a big baby. Inland Beach looked fantastic. Rose Run Valiant. Keep an eye on Rose Run Valiant. The one thing I heard from James the other day, which I hadn't heard from forever, Rose Run Valiant, he's got a really nice gait now, James said. A horse like him, with a really nice gait, could be a decent horse. He obviously got a brother that almost made $1 million. Very, very good horse and Catch a Dream. Strong family, and I've been very impressed. I talked thoroughly last week about how much I liked him in his set last week, and James really liked him again this week. Willpower Fashion, I put him in a place to make a break, and shockingly, he made a break. If you look, so how do I explain it? I'll explain it quick. When horses box their gates up and get out of gear, you can hope they work through it, or you can put them in gear and make them push through it. And it's hard. I should know better. That's why I moved Willpower Fashion where I did last week. I wanted him to work through it, and he did, and he trained great. But right where I moved him last week is where I didn't this week. He got in just a hair, got a little rolly, boxed his gate up. They shortened their gate up just a little bit, kind of single stepping. And what they end up doing is hitting themselves and making a break. By making them push through it, you make them continue to stretch out and they don't hit themselves. It's a little counterproductive for a horse, but they're doing their best they can. When horses are running in, it's almost impossible to get them to straighten themselves out. That's why we had equipment to help them do it. And Willpower Fashion was as much my fault as his yesterday, but I was impressed with him afterwards. But Everybody did their work well in there. Obviously, I think the two most impressive horses, like, I'm not going to say globetrotting because I expect her to be impressive. This is a filly we've staked into everything, and we think she's going to be a real, real good horse. Compass Rose DC continues to make me feel like she could be a real, real heavy hitter this year. We don't have her staked to much other than Ohio, but she looks real, real good. Globetrotting looks real, real good. What else do we got? Horses that impressed me yesterday. I'm trying to spend that money. Hometown Boys, Inland Beach, and then Johan Wachev. Those two horses in the last set. Johan, how good was that? I didn't have a great day training. We had 6 sets and I made breaks for 3 of them. But for Johan to do what he did yesterday, last half in a minute and a bit, 1-1 in a jog cart, first over, impressive. I was really, really happy with him. So that was the 3-year-olds, and then the 2-year-olds we'll talk about later. Listen, I hope you guys enjoy these videos. I hope I'm trying to be a tiny bit informative and keep you guys as sane as you can. And I'll keep bringing them all week. So we're going to go back in a minute. We're going to talk about all the barns. We're going to talk about all the 3-year-olds. That'll probably be a quick one. All the 2-year-olds. That one won't be a quick one. And all the barns. Back in just a second.